Right, well, good evening. I'm Simon Lovesey, the founder of Restart Sailing. I think, if I remember correctly, this is show 47, joined by John Emmett, I think, in Holland.
Yes, I'm in Almere at the Dutch World Cup. It's been, crikey, Med and Blick for over 20 years, I think. So it's interesting to have a different change of venue. And racing starts tomorrow. And the Laser Worlds, or I should say ILCA 7 Worlds, just finished yesterday. I think I've got that right. It's always hard with the time frames. Yeah. And we've got guest star Micky Beckett, who's one of the top ILCA sailors. But it's actually a class, for everyone from, the ILCA 4s, which are for people straight out of optimists, up to the Olympic campaigners, and a stepping stone for many people to sail GP, America's Cup, and the real top flight of sailing. And then lastly, we've got the usual coaching tips, something that people might often neglect to know about.
Right, okay, so moving on.
So we're going to see the graphs in a minute, but I don't think I need to tell most people things are looking very positive in the UK. It seems to be back to business as normal, but that's not the same for all countries. So if you are travelling, do get prepared early and see if you still need to wear masks, book tests, etc. Because some countries are open, some are closed because of their current ways of infections or just their policy towards COVID. So if you need to book a test or whatever to fly, make sure you get that done early and at the right place so you don't get any unnecessary stress.
Yeah, and I guess we shouldn't be forgetting everything as we head beyond summer and into winter.
No, I mean, I chatted with a lot of people who felt it was a bit like gazing into a crystal ball, but I think, 2 years down the road, the mathematical modelling is really good. And we expected the numbers to come tumbling down in May, which they have. If we go on to the next slides, you can see that the numbers are, really down now in the UK. And you've got that lag, but the deaths are now really down as well. So that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of down to a more normal level, isn't it, really, in terms of excess deaths?
Yes, well, I haven't put that up because it's a complicated matter, but yeah, in terms of COVID, we're in a very good situation now. So it's very much about resetting sailing. We're trying to talk to lots of classes because there really is something for everybody out there. Yeah. If we look at the regatta going on now in Holland, for me, it just feels completely normal, and numbers are starting to creep up. And in terms of the full-time sailors, I think people will be doing a lot of consecutive regattas to make up for a couple of years of not as much sailing as would be normal.
Yeah. And in the UK, the circuits carry on. Most events are going ahead. It's interesting, some events are still being cancelled. I think it was the Anglesey offshore race being cancelled later on, partly due to sort of clubs struggling to get volunteers. So I think that perhaps is the theme at the moment, is not COVID stopping things, but getting the volunteers to come back and help.
Yeah, and I guess all those systems which were in place for a long time for running events may take a little while to get going again. And people who are doing things, I was thinking, perhaps more job related, they may have taken the pandemic as an opportunity to step back and retire. So we need to look after our volunteers, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll get there, and obviously challenges with cost of living and things like that. So I think numbers are slightly down. I think.
Yeah, I mean, cost of living. I think sailing locally is a good thing anyway, and obviously the elite end of the sport need to travel. But I think club sailing, is the grassroots of the sport. That sort of family centric thing.
Yeah, and I think people are revisiting it and thinking it's good for them, aren't they?
Absolutely, especially now. In theory, the summer's here. I won't speak too soon.
Right. Okay. So I think time to bring
Wonders of technology from Mexico.
Time to bring in our guest.
Brilliant. Hopefully the audio's okay in the background.
Yeah. Hey guys.
It's really good to have you on the show, Micky. Thanks for sorting it out with the time zones. I must admit, I was getting a bit confused. Which day is which when you get to a 8-hour time difference? That's exactly one sleep cycle.
Yeah.
If we go back to the beginning, can you just tell us how you first got involved with the ILCA, as was the then laser class? Because there must be a lot of young sailors who are, choosing their pathway. You'll for sure be one of the role models. What advice would you give, and what was your own route?
So I started sailing toppers basically from a young age. My sort of village had two toppers. So my brother and I took them to do some nationwides, and that was until I was about 14 or 15. And then I did kind of get some exposure to like the ILCA national squad and things like that. And when I finished sailing toppers, I was about 14 or 15. And then rather conveniently, I grew.
I'm still waiting for that if you're making a hint.
and any day now, John, don't worry. So when I was 15, my older brother had already moved into lasers, and it just was the logical thing for us to kind of keep both doing the same events. And I quite enjoyed single-handed sailing. It never really occurred to me to do anything else. I think probably because I'm far too antisocial to deal with someone else in a boat. So sailed laser since I was 15.
When do you think you made that performance jump? What was it that? How did that come about? British sailing team, all that. There's going to be a lot of 14, 15, 16-year-olds watching this, wondering.
Yeah, I think probably around the age of like 16 or 17. I think until that age, I'd just like gone sailing for the sake of it, and then I think I sort of twigged on to the idea that I could have a reasonable degree of, if I invested like my time and my energy, I could just make myself better, basically. By sort of writing a small list of things that I needed to get better at. And I mean, where I grew up in Wales, there's really very, very little going on. So I just would kind of go sailing by myself and just sort of teach myself to get better at it. And I'd get the ideas from, the qualifiers at the weekend where I'd go and race. I think my first qualifier, I remember getting one race where I miraculously got to the first mark first, and then got smoked by Charlotte Dobson downwind. And then she was kind enough to tell me how she did it after the race, and I thought, that's brilliant. That's what I'm going to go and do for the next 2 weeks. She came and had a chat, and that's sort of all I've done since. I haven't really grown up. I'm just doing the exact same thing as when I was 15.
None of us have, Micky.
Education. Yeah.
And it's been a funny couple of years. I mean, I think a lot of us psychologically like to think it's behind us now. But what was the situation during the pandemic? I mean, the British sailing team carried on sailing, but it was certainly not business as normal.
No, it was weird. Like, it wasn't more weird for us than anyone else, but I mean, COVID for everyone was a strange time, and for us, it was no exception. It was just everything was cancelled, and I think the main thing that I learned during COVID is that so much of my life is based around when the next big event is. So, for example, if there's a big event in 3 months' time, I'll build sort of a 3-month training block to sort of get me in shape for that. And when all of a sudden you just don't know when the next event is, or when an event gets put in and then pushed back all the time, it kind of rocks your foundations a little bit, and you feel on almost a day-to-day basis quite lost. So
it's hard if you've got that focus for an event and then that event gets cancelled. That was one of the things people struggle with.
Yeah. I think, what we ended up doing is just training for a long time over summer in Weymouth, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was quite a sort of a significant period of my life where I actually stopped traveling, stopped doing stuff, and just stayed in the same place. And I did a lot of laser sailing, most of it with Elliot and the lads in the squad. And I think we did some really good work at that time. What I was worried about when we were training is that we were getting really, really good at just beating each other. And I was thinking, well, what if we're just training to come 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th at the next event? Because we have no idea what the rest of the world is up to. And ironically, I shouldn't have been worried at all. We were actually training ourselves to be, at Europeans, we were first, second, and third.
Yes, I remember it very, very well.
Yeah. It was really good actually, just to spend that much time in the boat and with nothing pressing. I had nowhere to go, nothing better to do. I kind of look back on it quite fondly, that whole summer of just sailing, really.
Do you think there's a lesson to be learned then about the amount of training and regatta ratio? Because especially for young people who always feel they need to catch up on the number of regattas the more experienced people have done.
Yeah, no, I think there is. And I think the thing is, when you're under the pressure of an event, you can't relax and make any changes. That sailing is just like habits. You just do what you're used to doing, and you can't change what you're used to doing under pressure. You can change what you're used to doing when you're by yourself and you relax and there's, barely anyone watching you and you're at your home club, and you can think, oh, maybe I'll try sitting here. Maybe I'll try tacking this way. And if you capsize, it doesn't matter. And when you've got a load of sort of time just to do it and experiment, you can make some surprisingly big gains.
Absolutely. In fact, I always think that under pressure, you possibly only ever go back to bad habits, let alone not learning new skills. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're pretty much halfway through the Olympic cycle already. Can you tell us a bit how it's gone and what's coming up? Because, wow, it's going to be 2024 before we know it.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I think it started fairly slowly. Obviously, with the Olympics being delayed a year, and then we had the Europeans and Worlds late last year in October and November. This year is the first year where I'd say it really does feel kind of back to normal. And I say that because we had Palma and Chies. We haven't had them for 3 years. In fact, it was when we were first in Palma in 2020 that the world suddenly sort of started ending, and we all.
So were you part of that manic pack up and dash back to the UK then?
Yeah, I drove the girls' ILCA 6 stuff home for them, which was quite entertaining. I was last off the ferry into Barcelona. It was just like a ferry full of every single van and trailer, and I was dead last off it. And then, driving out of Barcelona was mad because it was the morning of their very first lockdown, and every single road, other than the one going north or south out of the city, was like had a police blockade. So I set my sat nav up thinking, I don't want to get lost, and I couldn't have get lost because they were only just going to send me north to France.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, it's like an apocalypse.
And what's next for you? Because it's funny, you sit here and you count things down, but there's 2 World Championships less this cycle.
So next, the main thing this summer is going to Marseille basically and kind of see what the deal is. I've been there before.
So for the people at home, just very briefly explain why Marseille. I know, but not everyone will.
Very good point. Marseille is where the Olympics are going to be. The sailing part of the Olympics are going to be held when the Paris Olympics comes by in 2 years' time. So it's kind of the main city of Marseille, and just east of that is a bay where the sailing will be held. What's quite important with the Olympic event is to go there at the right time of year, because the weather, when the Olympics are on, which is the last week of July, first week of August, is very, very different in autumn, spring, and to winter. So everybody's going to be going there right over the Olympic dates just to kind of get ahead of the game.
Packed.
It is going to be packed. It's packed already. It's an immensely popular French city, full of jet skis and what have you. And then we all show up. It is going to be very busy. Yeah.
And your thoughts? Do you like the venue? I mean, it's not that far down the road from here, where you've got your Europeans later on this year.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a chaotic place to sail in my experience. There's just a lot going on. It's quite a small bay, like a C-shaped bay. So the chances that you get like a clean onshore breeze is fairly unlikely. All the land surrounding it is very high. So basically, there's just a lot going on. You've got big gusts, big shifts. You've also got a swell rolling in, and you've got ships going in and out. So the kind of swell and the chop is very, very chaotic. My overwhelming impression of it was that it was just the sort of place that made you feel like you were bad at sailing because it was just so difficult.
But everybody else has that feeling as well. That's
everyone has the same problem. You come in and you go, oh, my boat handling was awful today. I had a cockpit full of water the whole time, and everyone's just saying the same thing. It's just tricky. It's an unforgiving place, but I think that's good. I think it'll make for good racing.
Yeah, and as you say, it's that time in the boat in that venue. I'm glad you guys are managing to get out there, and it's good to be part of a team. So you've always got those training partners, I guess. Yeah,
it is really helpful because you can go there and sail by yourself, but you'll never figure out, what was actually the right thing to do. So you can learn an awful lot more by having other boats with you.
Our British sailing team, they did four in the top 20 at the last Worlds. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So yes. That's it's hard.
Yeah, we've got a good squad. Yeah. And the main thing with that is that we're all quite reasonable people and we can all talk to each other, which is actually of enormous benefit. Like, it's one thing to have a squad of good sailors, but it's another thing to have a squad of good sailors where we can all go for a coffee after sailing and then go, all right, let's brainstorm how we'd go and do it tomorrow, and we can all learn off each other. Because no disrespect, coaching is fantastic, but if you can get inside one of your rivals' heads, I don't mean that in the malicious sense, but just understand their decision making, you know, what were they thinking when they decided to do X, Y, Z? You can learn so much because it's like, you know, you just get twice as much feedback.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a playbook. That's what we're trying to. Well, thank you so much for your time. I believe you're going coaching today. Is that correct?
I am indeed. I am coaching at the ILCA 7 Masters Worlds. It's still here in Mexico. It's good fun.
So we're expecting really, really good things with you looking after them. No pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. I'll try and live up to it.
Good man. Well, thanks so much for your time. We're going to flick on now to next slides. But any comments? I'm just always thinking that it's so important to get the basics right in sailing. And one of the things we recently was helping out with a film production, and you know, people don't know anything about sailing. They don't actually know how we start a race, how we finish a race, how we postpone a race, how we abandon a race. And you know, you can get these nice little stickers and put them in your boat if you're, you know, new to the sport. But it's really important that you understand the flags, so that you know what's going on. That's the way we communicate. And there's a big difference between, you know, go home, more signals on shore, or racing is postponed to another day. And there's a big difference between some of these we don't see very often now, but the I flag or the Z flag. We tend to see U flag, and we also tend to see black flag. And you need to know, you know, what it all means, how it affects your sailing. And yeah, I think it's something, along with knowing the rules, it's really important. So that's today's top tip. And really looking forward to the international canoe on the next show. It's hard to think of a more different boat to Malaysia in terms of a single hander, and perhaps the international canoe is fits that bill. I must admit, at this stage, I'm not entirely sure we've got on the show, because they keep on changing their minds, but I'm sure whoever it is will be fantastic.